Find ways to seek calm, to seek connection with your body, to breathe in the body, to give yourself space. I had to work really, really hard to own my own voice. Claiming the space to stand up and be heard and to speak is really, really, really important to me. And I don't think I'm loud, I just think I'm expressing an opinion.
Sangeeta, I'm so delighted to have you on today. This is going to be such an exciting and fun conversation, but can you please start by introducing yourself as if you're speaking to someone that you've never met before?
Thank you so much for having me, Maika. I'm Sangeeta Pillai. I run Masala Podcast, which is the biggest South Asian feminist podcast in the UK. I run Soul Sutras, which is a South Asian feminist network. I've just released my book called Bad Daughter, which kind of sums up my whole life philosophy, which is basically doing your own thing and forging your own path as a South Asian woman. I give a lot of talks to other South Asian women. I am basically a bad daughter. That's it. That sums me up.
I love that. And my closing question for all the guests on this podcast is usually, this is Reclaiming Bossy. What does that mean for you? And are you reclaiming it? But I want to start with this question for you in this conversation, because I think reclaiming Bossy to me is what it means to be a bad beti, as someone who is also from Mumbai, from India, and has a lot of the same cultural shared experiences with you. I really deeply resonate with all of your work and see that in my own experiences and in the experiences of my community. But for you, what does it mean to reclaim being bossy?
So for me, it's very much reclaiming our voices as South Asian women. I think growing up in a culture that doesn't really let you speak, and then living in the West where you're always this kind of second-class citizen in a sense, it would be very much about reclaiming who I am, my identity, my voice, my heritage. As you see, I always wear these like brocadey kind of fabrics. I wear bright colors. It's very much part of my identity. I talk about my cultural experiences a lot. I talk about coming from Kerala, and, you know, it's very much being myself, which is loud and proud and desi.
I love that. Loud and proud and desi. I'm going to steal that. I think a lot of women grow up feeling not enough, but on the other side, the same kind of wound is feeling too much. And when you talk about being loud and proud and desi, that's something that I felt for so many years of, I'm too much, I'm too brown, I take up too much space, I'm too this, I'm too that. What has that experience been like for you as someone with big opinions, big passion, and big kind of mission around what you want to do?
So I was born in Kerala, but we moved to Mumbai when I was about 4. But we moved to the slums of Mumbai. So I grew up in a home. There was no toilets. There was no running water. Mm-hmm. I grew up with a father who was alcoholic. He was violent. I grew up in a very patriarchal system. Like, I was the first girl in my family to go to university, to get a job, to have my own money. So I had to work really, really hard to own my own voice. Because if I didn't do that, I always say this, I'd be washing some guy's underwear in Mumbai, right? So claiming that voice, claiming that opinion, claiming the space to stand up and be heard and to speak is really, really, really important to me. Like, my mother never had that. Her mother never had that. And I feel like I'm doing it for all the women in my family, all my ancestors. And coming to the UK as well, there's another kind of layer on top of that, where as a new immigrant, there's almost this system of like, oh, you're kind of fresh off the boat, so you're not allowed in these spaces. And that was another level of kind of, I wouldn't say patriarchy, but racism, I guess. It's internalized racism. And then you have to overcome that as well. So I feel like I've definitely challenged a lot of the norms. I'm somebody like I'm the one who's tilting at the windmills, you know, like Don Quixote. So you tell me not to do something and I'll go and do it. You know, that's very much my vibe in every area that I've ever operated in, whether it be podcasting, whether it's now writing a book, whether it's whatever I do, that's what I do. So it's very critical to who I am to be this loud. And I don't think I'm loud. I just think I'm expressing an opinion. Other people might say I'm loud because they don't want me to express that opinion. They'd rather I shut up and sit down, which I refuse to do.
I love that. And I think it's also the fact that people like us don't necessarily usually have super loud opinions. And so it causes a dissonance when someone who should behave a certain way isn't doing that. And it's like leaving this prison of should. But I was thinking about shame the other day, and I was speaking to my friend who's a neuroscientist, and I was asking him, I understand the point of anxiety, I understand the point of fear, but what is the point of shame biologically? And he goes, shame is not for you. Shame is for the function of society and for community. It is the glue and social fabric to make sure that people work together. It is not because of your biological kind of survival within yourself, but it's within the community. Now, in the intro of your podcast, you say besharam, which means shameless. And to me, when I think of the word shameless, growing up, it had very negative connotations. But to be without shame is so powerful. What does that mean for you? What does besharam mean?
So besharam is what women get called when we don't toe the line, when we don't follow the rules, when we don't shut up and put up with patriarchy. The minute we step out of line, they call us besharam, shameless. Because it's the quickest way to put a woman in her place. And like your friend, the neuroscientist, said, shame is not so much an evolutionary, but a societal construct. It's to keep a tribe together. If you put the feeling of shame in somebody, they kind of follow the rules. And shame, I talk about shame a lot on the podcast, actually. Shame is a physical thing. So if you think of the emotion, think of where it sits in your body. I always think of it as like this heat in my underarms, like sweat.
Like
that's shame.
Energetic body odor.
Yeah, body odor, right? Because it's somebody else putting it on you. But it's nothing to do with you. It is someone else's idea of who you should be, what your behavior should be, what you wear, what you don't wear. Because it's used to really vilify women. If they don't like what we wear, you're shameless. If they don't like the partner we choose, or if we choose to stay unmarried, or if we choose to have sex, or whatever, it's shame, right? Everything is to do with shame. It's to put a woman in her place in that context. The other important thing I wanted to talk about, and this is coming up because I'm releasing an episode tomorrow on cultural shame. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot, where as people who are not originally from here, we're not Western, we are immigrants, even if we've grown up, you're second generation, whatever. We shut parts of ourselves down because we are made to feel shame about them. We're made to feel like, you're wearing very Indian colors. What does that mean? That means it's too loud. Or we don't like tenants cooking Indian food. What does that mean? That means your food's shameful. You know, there's so much added on to this. And it's shame. It's to keep people in their place, including women. I could talk a lot about shame.
Oh my God. I think we're going to come back to this because this is something that I've experienced so much. And I think much of my journey on this podcast, through my business, through my life, has been taking and unpacking that shame. And personally, I really value openness because I know that people suffer in silence because of shame. And that's why, despite being Indian on this podcast, I've brought on a sexologist and I've brought on people who speak about money and menstruation. And now we're having this conversation. It's so, so, so important because it's human to want to know about these things. They touch our lives, they affect us. And actually, when you have open and honest conversations, you reduce being blindsided and being hurt by a lack of awareness, which causes naivety and all of these different things. So it sounds like you're quite far on in your journey of being a bad beti and being shameless. But how did it start? What was the first step that you took that kind of brought you onto this path?
I always think of the time when we still lived in the village in Kerala, and my mum took me to the village photography studio. There was one studio back in the day, right? It was on the edge of these fields. And my mum and my aunt took me there, and they made me stand on this little podium. And they said, smile, okay? Because that's what everybody did. The more they told me to smile, the less I smiled. And there's this picture of me like really grumpy with my hand on my hip, looking really like, don't tell me what to do, you know. And that's kind of one of my earlier memories, really. And I write about it in the book as well. It's one of the first few chapters of the book because my mother always used to say, like, that's when I knew you were trouble.
Yeah. And in terms of your mother, you've shared on other podcasts and in articles about how she very tragically died and you lost her. What has that experience been like? Because I think a lot of women inform their identity, their sense of self-worth, their connection to their femininity through their relationship with their mother. My mum is a huge influence in the way that I see myself. So what was that like for you?
So my mother and I had quite a complicated relationship. She loved me, I know she did. But she didn't know any better. So she was trying to get me married when I was about 18, 19. She didn't like the career that I chose in advertising. She didn't like my friends. She didn't like my clothes. You know, there was a lot of... So we kind of battled each other for about 10 years. And I lived in Mumbai in the 80s and you didn't leave. You kind of got married. You know, that's how you left. And they'd always say that either it's your wedding procession or your funeral procession that leaves your parents' house. Tumhari doli jayegi, nahi to arthi jayegi. You know, in Hindi. So that's kind of how I grew up. But I think now looking back, I've done a lot of work. So a lot of us carry a mother wound. You know, they are the first measure of love for us psychologically as well, you know. Mm-hmm. They are how, if we feel secure or if we don't feel secure, that comes from our mother. Mm-hmm. How we express love, we learn from our mother. Like everything comes from your mother and your father, but, you know, she's the primary kind of caregiver for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. So I've done a lot of internal work over the last couple of years to really heal. I have had a lot of trauma in my life. My mother's murder, my dad's abuse, there's just been a lot. And after kind of going through a lot of the work and sitting with it, I've come to understand that she did the best she could in the very limited circumstances that she herself had. She could not conceive of a life that I live now. This life that I live in London. I've got my own flat. I travel all over the world. I run this podcast. I do these amazing things, you know. She could not even have possibly dreamt of that. So I think for me, it's letting go of some of the pain and the anger that I used to carry towards her. It's also understanding that she made me who I am. Watching her get beaten up every night made me very sure that that was not the life I wanted. So I fought tooth and nail to not have that life, the arranged marriage, the children, the looking after the husband life, right? So indirectly, she has informed my feminism. She has made my feminism in so many ways. Because I wouldn't be this strong advocate for other women. Look at me, I've spent a whole life for women. Like, this is what I do. Helping women heal is my life's work, my life's purpose. Where does that come from? My mother, obviously.
That is beautiful. I love that. And before I ask you my next question, I want to share something that reminds me of. So I was born in Mumbai as well. Like I know you said you were born in Kerala, but I was born in Mumbai. And so my family told me that when I was born, you weren't allowed to know the sex of your child before birth because there were such high rates of female feticide. And it wasn't a good thing to be a daughter. It was a burden to the family, financially, societally, emotionally. And so it was a risk, and hospitals just didn't tell parents what their child was going to be. So my parents didn't know that I was going to be a daughter. My mom had a C-section, and she used the surgeon's phone to call my dad and be like, "You won't believe it. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. We had a daughter." And people in the hospital came to see who this crazy woman was celebrating having a daughter in what was the early 2000s in India. And that wasn't a long time ago. That was 20-something years ago. And even then, even now, sometimes when I look at social media and I see things that happen, there is the big tax around being a daughter and being a woman. And I think that it's these early stories and the relationships that we have with our family that fully informs like our purpose. And linking to mother, aside from your actual mother, like when people talk about countries, especially India, we call it like motherland and like our soil and our country. And so what was it like leaving your motherland and coming and forming a new life here? What was that experience like?
It's been such an interesting journey for me, this whole kind of belonging and motherland and all of that. So I left India 21 years ago, moved to the UK, and at that point when I moved, I was very excited to be in London. I'd grown up reading books. Books were like my life, my escape in my kind of home and things like that when things got difficult. So I had this idea of London. The London of my imagination was the London of Sherlock Holmes and, Watson and, London Bridge. I didn't know it was Tower Bridge then. I used to call it London Bridge. So I came and I remember getting off the flight and I remember walking along Tower Bridge and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm actually here in this land, So it was very exciting for me to move here because it always had these images of the UK from all the books that I had read. And I started working in advertising because that's what I used to do. It took me a while to get a job here, racism, etc. And I had a pretty good life. And, I worked in a couple of agencies. I made my own money, bought my place, all of that. And then about 8 years ago, I had a big mental health crisis. And I think it came because I had not dealt with a lot of the trauma in my life. Most people do this. They think if you push it away, if it's not there, it's not going to affect me. It's like a child. I can't see it, so it's not there. Trauma will get you at some point or the other. So trauma got me then. And then coming out of that and doing a lot of the work on my kind of psyche, psychologically, all of that, made me realize that the advertising job was not what I wanted to do with my life. Started running these workshops for South Asian women, did a lot of kind of writing of stories around taboos, then built this theatre show called Masala Monologues. I had a show at Rich Mix, and then I had a show at Design Museum. And the response was so amazing, all these women coming up to me and hugging me, that I thought, I need to do something with this. And that's when the podcasting thing came into my head. Someone sent me a link to a Spotify competition, and I entered the competition without any idea what it was. And I went on to win the competition. I won't bore you with details, but it was like the first time I didn't know what the word podcast was, and kind of entered, won, built the podcast, all of that. And it's been immensely successful, as you know. It's won all these awards and all this press and everything. But coming back to your question of the motherland, in the last 4 years, 3.5 years actually, I've had a whole other experience of the motherland, where before I rejected Kerala, where I came from, because I was like, it's really patriarchal, which it is. It is the most 100% literacy and all of that, and it is a lot more forward compared to other Indian states. But it's still, it's India, so, my uncles were still very much patriarchal. My dad was that. So I very much rejected that, and I used to say I'm from Mumbai, and I used to say I live in London, I'm a Londoner. And about 3 years ago, as part of my healing journey, one of the things I tried was Tantra. So I've tried loads of different modalities to heal, acupuncture and hypnotherapy and Tantra. And the practitioner told me, you need to go back to where you came from. So I'm like, oh my God, I really don't want to go back to Kerala. But I did. So I spent 2 weeks there about 3 years ago. And I traveled up and down on my own. It's the first time I traveled in Kerala on my own, because we used to go for like summer holidays. I went to the beaches, I went to the hills, I went to the cities. And I fell in love with it. And since then, I've gone back. Last year, stayed for 3 months in Kerala to finish writing my book, Bad Daughter, because a lot of it is set in Kerala. And I've had these very deeply spiritual experiences in Kerala, in some of the temples. Because a lot of the Kerala temples are goddess temples. And they worship like this fierce form of the goddess, Kali. There's a version of Kali that they worship. And I've felt connection. I've felt belonging. I've made friendships, and I've spoken the language again. And there's this joy in my heart when I speak the language, when I eat the food of that land. So there's been a huge kind of going back. I've gone from like the rejection of it to the exploring of it, to the acceptance of it, and now to the love of it. And now I think I told you this, I just bought a place there when I was there. And I think to myself, like, my mother would be absolutely over the moon if she knew, because she would try to get us to go and we never went. And now I bought a place, and I intend to be there for half a year every year. Like, that's how much I've gone back to my roots. And it's been a huge part of my healing. Because what I didn't know before is we are very much a product of where we come from, wherever that is. And that soil, that land, those that earth informs a lot of us. We are connected to our ancestors. We are connected through the DNA, through our memories, through past lives, if you believe that. So if you reject that, you're rejecting yourself in a sense. And true healing comes from rerouting. So that's what I've learned.
That is beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing that journey. It really, really resonates with me. And I always say that you can't love the flower and hate the root.
Absolutely.
I rejected my Indian culture for a long time because when I moved here, I was bullied. And I felt like that was the reason. And I saw my belonging and my identity as something that made me a target. And I tried everything to step away from it. And I'm on this journey of slowly reclaiming that as well. What advice do you have for younger South Asian women who are now learning how to take the bits of their culture that they want and adapt it to their different values that are mixed? Because you get to a point when you're both and neither. You'll never be fully one thing or fully one other thing. And so what advice do you have for women who are embarking on that journey and are a few steps behind you?
I would say that the most important thing to remember is culture isn't a monolith. Culture isn't like one line in the sand and nobody gets to change it. Culture is what we make it. So we come from a very ancient culture. There's lots of very beautiful things in that culture, but there are also things that aren't very great. So it's up to us as women in 2026, in this world that we occupy, to take the bits that feel right, that resonate with us, that connect with us, and say no to the bits that don't, right? And you're allowed to do that. And that, for me, was the biggest learning, I think. And that's what I'd say to younger women. I used to think that my Indian culture is take it or leave it. Either you have all of it, you wear the clothes, you eat the food, you marry the man, you wear the saris, whatever, or you do none of it. And what I've come to learn as I'm growing older is that no, there are bits that connect with me, with the person that I am, the feminist that I am, the strong woman that I am. So I'm going to take those bits. And there are bits that don't resonate with me and they don't belong to me. And I'm still allowed to call myself Indian, South Asian, whatever you choose to call yourself, because that's my version of my culture. And when I did that, that's the first time I felt a sense of belonging. Because like you, I've always felt like I never belonged. I didn't belong in Kerala, I didn't belong in Mumbai, I didn't belong in Singapore, I didn't belong in London. But at the same time, I could belong anywhere. Like I can just move, I'm one of these people, I can just move somewhere and I can make it my own. That's who I am. But at the same time, to have a sense of belonging is a sense of rootedness. It's like a tree. You grow deep into that ground and then you can stand really solid, Yeah. So that's the advice I'd give. There's no one size fits all. You're allowed to take the bits that suit you and don't take the bits that don't suit you. And coming back to something you said, that you were bullied and therefore that led to a rejecting of your culture. And even if someone's not directly bullied, those little micro incidents, right? They make us shrink. They make us feel like, oh, it's because of my differentness that they are saying this, or they're not giving me these opportunities, or they're making me feel bad. So I'm going to shut that down and I'm going to assimilate and I'm going to be beige and wear gray and anglicize my name and all these millions of things that we do to fit in. And that's not our fault. That's not your fault. That's not my fault. We do this because we live in a society that's making us feel bad about something. But I'd say just own it. The more you own it, the more you stand up and say it very proudly that this is who I am, the less somebody will have a problem with it.
Yeah. And the right people will find you.
Absolutely.
And I want to come to that community building side because you've built a fantastic community. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about loneliness because this is something that you recently made an episode about on your podcast. And I think when you're navigating belonging and you feel like you're not from one place, you don't know who you are, you don't know what you really care about because your values might be in conflict with the people around you, that can be really lonely.
Yes.
When you don't see yourself in your community, but you also don't see yourself where you live. How do you navigate that internal sense of loneliness?
Thank you so much for bringing it up. It's one of the things I really want us all to talk about. Loneliness has shame attached to it. So the minute you attach shame to something, people shut up. People don't really talk about it. So it amazes me. We can talk about sex, but we don't talk about loneliness. That's how hidden and shameful it is. But we all feel lonely at some point or the other.
Yeah.
When you come from another culture and you move to a different country, you'll feel lonely. If you don't feel like you fit among your school or your university or your workmates, you feel lonely. If you are slightly different to other people, which a lot of us are, you feel lonely. If you've made life choices like me, like I'm, not married, I haven't got children, I have no family in the UK, then you feel lonely because you've made choices that are different to 90% of the population, right? So what I want to say to anybody listening is it's okay to feel lonely. It's human to feel lonely. It just means that you're navigating something, that you're finding where your sense of belonging is, where your identity is. And it's the sting that makes you do the work.
Yeah.
So if everything felt really comfortable, we wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's the loneliness that's telling you, hey, maybe you're not in the right place. Maybe you're not among the right people. Because you can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely.
Yeah.
Right? I've had that where I'm like with bunches of people, but the things they're talking about don't connect with me. If you stop drinking, like I've stopped drinking a couple of years ago, that makes you really lonely in the UK because everything's about alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? So there are so many kind of subcategories, if you will, of loneliness. It's not this like one thing. It shocks me how people react to me talking about loneliness. I've had so many people reach out to say, oh, but you shouldn't really be feeling lonely. And I'm like, well, I can, and we all can. And I think A is to accept it, to not feel ashamed of it, which most of us do. Mm-hmm. Oh, I shouldn't be at this stage in my life or this age in my life and feeling lonely. You can feel lonely at any age.
Yeah.
You can feel lonely if you have a partner. You can feel lonely if you have a family. You can feel lonely in a crowd. And that's all okay. And I think then to almost very gently investigate what that loneliness is telling you, because it's usually telling you something. Mm-hmm. That maybe you're not in the right place or space or whatever it might be. I think that's how I would ask people to think about it.
I love that. And I think it links to this like weird cultural messaging about it being lonely at the top. And like the more specific you become, like you said, you stop drinking, you designed a life that's so bold and delicious and in accordance with you and your values, but you still feel lonely. And I think people use that as kind of like a cautionary tale of like, look, I remember listening to this in your podcast where you were like, it was hard for me to admit that I had done all of these things and I still felt lonely. Why do you think people feel, forget shame, but why do they feel a sense of failure when they feel lonely as well?
Because we are taught that, and again, it's this messaging that when you get to X, Y, and Z space in your life, everything's going to be fine, right? But that presumes that you will always be the same, but you will not be the same. I am not the person I was even 3 years ago. So then I no longer fit into the spaces that I fit into 3 years ago. So I'm constantly evolving, and that's a good thing. For us to evolve is a good thing. And for women in particular, loneliness is the little danda that they use, like if you don't get married, you'll be lonely. If you don't have children, who's going to look after you? You'll be lonely. As if like having a child is an insurance policy against old age. Like why should that child be looking after you? That child's going to have their own life, right? So it's this like little stick that they use to beat us with,
Yeah.
But you can do all of those things that the aunties are telling you to do and you will still feel lonely, And it's just this thing. And the failure comes because we think we shouldn't feel like that. Mm-hmm. That's where the failure comes.
Yeah.
Why would we not feel like that? Aren't we human? Aren't we evolving? Aren't we allowed to change ourselves? Mm-hmm. So why then are we not allowed to feel lonely?
Yeah.
Right?
100%. It's like giving yourself the permission before you can address how you want to change that. And in my experience, one of the most powerful antidotes to loneliness is creating community, not just going and being busy, but intentionally deciding who do I want to spend my time with. And as a community builder as well, I feel like you've done that beautifully of like creating rooms of people that really resonate with each other. Community is such a buzzword, and I think now lots of people are trying to start their own communities and do events. And in London, there's so many, which is amazing because London is a big city and it can be lonely. But what advice do you have to people that want to start communities of how they can do it well and with intention?
I think the most important thing is to think about what kind of community you want. What is it that's really important to you? Is it a value system? Is it a thing you do, like you love reading books and therefore you want to be surrounded by people who read books? Or if you want to think about, making the world more equitable or whatever it might be. So thinking about what is it that really touches your heart when it comes to community. And then trying to find other people who then might share that. Because that's the basis of it. Whereas if you just say, I want to build a community, and you're like building a thing, and those people don't have anything in common, it's not going to work. Because community, by its very definition, needs you all to be very passionate about something, So I would say do it slowly, do it carefully, do it with intention, because it's something that takes a lot of time and nurturing and care. And if you kind of go after it for the wrong reasons, it doesn't necessarily work. So my community now is like the podcast and all the work is about 8 years old. And the people in my community have been people who've been with me on that journey. They were the first people to message me about the podcast or turn up to like a live podcast event or come and clap when I won awards or, those are the people that are part of my community. And also, my community has expanded and shifted as well. So they're obviously primarily South Asian women because that's the work I do. But it's also now included other women of other cultures who sometimes resonate maybe with the book, for example. So they've become part of my community. And these are the people I reach out to when I have questions or have an event or, like I'm doing this party on the 26th of June. You should come as well. I'm calling the Bad Daughter Summer Party. So I'm going to invite some non-South Asian women as well, because they're very much part of the community. But so for me, the nub of my community is women, feminism, sisterhood, support. That's the core of my community. And wherever I go, that's what I built. Like Kerala, when I go back, the connections I've made are primarily women. So, so that's my ethos. So think very clearly about what is your ethos? What is it that you really, really want that nourishes your soul? Because when it nourishes your soul, chances are other people will be looking for that. So that's what I would say.
I love that advice. And it resonates because my community is very similar to yours in terms of it's very female-centered. I really want young women, or regardless of their age, to have confidence, to have resources, and to have community and support to do whatever they want. Build a business, date who they want, create what they want, travel where they want to go, just to have that permission and that validation, because it means a lot, especially when you're breaking. There's so many people. I'm one of the first to live alone, to live abroad, to start a business, to do all these things in my lineage. There's so many people in our communities that are the first, and that is a huge privilege, but it's isolating.
Yes.
It's hard though, and I feel like you must get this all the time as well, but people accuse me of being a man hater because I have a female podcast, and because a lot of the work that I do is advocacy around women. And today I had to actually make a post being like, no, I'm not a man hater, but this is why I have a female founder podcast, and I made a detailed post about it. But why, what has been your experience as someone who's been building a lot longer than I have, of creating a community for women without being a man hater or excluding men or trying to make anyone feel bad?
I think the whole man hater thing is patriarchy's weapon. because they just kind of lob it at us saying, oh, you're a feminist, you must hate men. I get it a lot. And I always say, no, actually, feminism supports men too. Patriarchy damages men deeply. All the Andrew Tates of the world, where do you think they've come from? Patriarchy, right? Because they're not allowed to have human emotions. As a man, you're supposed to be like, never cry, never show weakness, never whatever, you're this man, you know? And that's inhuman. So for me, I will always say, funny, I did an author event last week and it was full of women and there was one guy and I started talking about feminism and he jumped in and said, oh, well, you know, it's not that, you know, we don't really hate you, blah, 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 blah. He said, and I said, hang on a minute. I'm really glad you're here because we need allies. We need you also to fight for us and we want to be fighting for you as well. So it just means that you are a good human if you're here. To be a feminist, there's nothing, you know, if you look up the textbook definition, is wanting the same rights as men. Like, really? Is that so difficult to understand? So I also feel like, you know, feminism in some spaces has a bad name. Like in India, I don't know if you've noticed this. If you say you're a feminist, they're like, oh, but you don't look like a feminist. I've had this.
Yeah.
I'm like, Because they assume that you're some like man-hating,
unmarriageable,
non-makeup wearing kind of person. I don't know what, but
you don't look like a feminist is crazy. Yeah.
You know, you don't look like a feminist. So it's a weird, incorrect idea of feminism that some people have, that sadly some women have as well. They quickly, I'm not a feminist. And then you ask them like, I always ask them that, okay, fine, you're not a feminist. Do you want a bank account? They said yes. Do you want to own your own property? Yes. Do you want to vote? Yes. Well, then you're a feminist by definition. That is a feminist, right?
Yeah.
So that's been my experience.
Yeah, and I always say it's not about kicking anyone off the table. It's just adding more seats.
Exactly.
And everyone benefits when you add more seats.
Exactly.
Economy benefits because there's more stuff to go around. There's more kind of businesses, products, services. Like there is an economic case for women running more businesses, for people having more agency, autonomy.
Yes.
It's not about like diversity and inclusion and ticking boxes and all this stuff. It makes me so angry.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of the audience on the YouTube channel for this podcast are men. I was quite surprised and confused when I first saw the analytics. I was like, okay.
That's good. You're doing the work.
I'm trying. But for the men that are listening to this conversation, how can they be good brothers, friends, husbands, boyfriends, allies to loud, proud, brown and non-brown women?
Thank you for asking this. And I get asked this a lot. I think the first most important thing for a man to do is listen. Just listen to the women in your lives. Listen with empathy, listen with sympathy. Your sisters, your mothers, your aunts, your girlfriend, your colleague, whoever it is. Because sometimes all we want is for someone to hear us. The second thing I'd say is turn up for them. Show your support. If you are reading about the Epstein files, vocalize that I think this is not okay. This is not acceptable. Vocalize yourself with them in public, at work. Work is a really good example. I've sat in so many meeting rooms in my advertising career where I would say something and this big white man would stand up and say the same thing 10 times louder and everyone listens to them. So if you're one of the men sitting in that kind of boardroom, turn up and say, oh, what were you saying? I think that's a really good point. Because then you're acknowledging that that woman is there. She's not invisible. So do the support at home. Do the support outside. Do the support at work. Do the support in all of these spaces. If you see a woman being harassed somewhere, sexually harassed, ask if she needs help or she needs support, whatever. Just be an ally in all the ways that you can be.
Yeah.
Because we want allies. This is not a fight we're going to win on our own. We want the men alongside us because this benefits them too.
Yeah, 100%. And my next question is linked to how can women be better girls? Because I think some people, I think most women struggle with this at some point of their life, because we're fed all of these movies and narratives about the it girl and this scarcity mindset of like, you get the hot boyfriend or you get the top position, or even in the workspace, there's usually space for one woman. How do we stop those kind of hierarchical pyramid it girl dialogues and create space for everyone to be an it girl and be actually like proper girls?
Remember that this is a lie we've been fed. Patriarchy's biggest weapon is to make us believe that there's very little. There's only one job, there's only one man, there's only one resource. So you must fight each other for it. That's bullshit, right? There's a lot of resource in the world. As we know, when we look at men, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of power, there are a lot of partners, there are a lot of houses to be bought. It's all there. So if you remind yourself that that's a lie that you have internalized, you have internalized a belief of the scarcity mindset, that there's not enough and that you have to fight each other. The minute you do that and your body is able to relax, to say, yes, there's enough. I don't need to fight that girl for it. And you watch the magic that happens when you do that. Because when you relax and when you are approaching the universe with abundance, abundance is what comes to you. Like, I have seen this in my own life. So don't be fighting other women. They are not the enemy. There's enough and more to go around. Just look around you. There's so much to go around. And if you support each other, you're 10 times stronger. Because that's what they want you to do. They want you to fight each other. And that's what you're doing. But the minute you turn around and you support each other, you look at the strength that that brings. Look at how much change we can create together.
Wow, I love that. I feel so much more relaxed after you say that. I think being told to relax is like one of my least favorite things, and I know many women share, especially if it's a man telling me to relax.
Yes, of course.
Like, oh, just relax. That it's going to make me so angry. But what a practical way is that the women listening to this conversation, or the people listening to this conversation, can be more embodied and actually relax a little bit more and just receive abundance in their life?
So I've done a lot of work on this myself. I mean, I'm very much like the typical woman, like, man, I've got to go do this, and I've got to wake up in the morning and do that. My job list is like 50 and this, that. But it's only in the last couple of years that it's occurred to me that I don't need to kill myself to do this. Like, the best things that have happened in my life, the Spotify sponsorship, the 6 British Podcast Awards, they happened. I didn't kill myself to do it. I did the work, but I didn't like stay up for 24 hours and do, cold plunges and all the rest, It just came, right? So it all starts in the body. So if you hold all this stress, your shoulders are hunched up and your back hurts and your facial muscles are tight, your body believes it's in fight or flight. It's like ready to leap and, run when the tiger chases you, because that's what the body understands when you're stressed.
Yeah.
If you are able to find ways to calm the body down, to calm the nervous system down, and that might be different things for different people. Mm-hmm. Like, I do a lot of breath work. Mm-hmm. I sit in meditation every morning. Every morning is the first thing I do. I drink my tea, and then I have a spot and I sit.
Yeah.
And you can meditate, you can pray, you can breathe, you can do whatever you like. But basically the exercise is in reconnecting with our bodies. Like 90% of us are disconnected from our bodies, especially women, because we're taught to hate our bodies, control our bodies, make our bodies thin and make our bodies young and make our bodies all of these things. And we're just like, that's what the messages are. But if you befriend your body, if you ask your body, what does she feel? What would she like? Mm-hmm. How many of us do that? Like, negligible.
Yeah.
So I've learned to just sit and first to even see, okay, how am I feeling? And sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel a tightness in my chest that I didn't even know I felt. Or my calves hurt, or whatever it might be. Just ask.
Yeah.
And then slowly try and relax, whether that's through breath work, meditation, whatever. And you'll find that everything shifts when you do that. This morning I did something that I haven't done forever. I didn't let myself look at my phone for about 2 hours after I woke up.
Wow.
Because the first thing I do is reach my phone every day. And then I realized how much of a nervous system response it creates in my body and in all our bodies. It's just that we don't know.
Yeah.
You're looking and you're like, okay, first you're like comparing. You're like, oh, all of these people have their shit together and I don't.
Yeah.
Right? This one is richer. This one is thinner. This one is prettier. Whatever, right? All these kind of people out there they're selling us stuff.
Yeah.
Making us feel bad about ourselves and then selling us the fix, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at the world and there's so much anxiety around all the political issues and the war. So already before you've even started your day, you've put your body into fight or flight.
Yeah.
So just today, I've just done it today. And immediately I realized how much clearer my mind was when I sat down to work. So I started working at about 9 every day. And when I sat, I'm like, wow, my mind is so clear. It's because I didn't fill it with the junk for an hour that I normally do on social media.
Yeah.
So find what it is that makes you anxious, that makes your body anxious, and try and kind of do less of that. I mean, we live in a world where we can't not use social media.
Yeah.
I'd love to live in a forest and not have to look at my Instagram, but try and find ways so we're not consumed by it.
Yeah.
Because that's what the tech companies want us to do. They want us to be on our phones 24/7 because that's how they profit from us. Mm-hmm. Because then they sell our attention to advertisers. That's what they're doing. Or, so find ways to seek calm, to seek connection with your body, to breathe in the body, to give yourself space. And it might look like different things for different people. You might like to dance. You might like to look at trees. I love going into the park and just looking at trees and birds. And that calms my nervous system so much. When I'm really anxious, that's what I do. So find what it is that works for you. And that's the first step. You can't manifest abundance when you're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed. Yeah. And then I'm manifesting to like hell. Like, that's not going to work. You have to calm your body down, calm the nervous system down. Then you're ready to receive.
I loved what you said so much. And because we're running out of time, I'm going to have to request you to come back so we can talk about all things sex and taboo and all of these other things. But because you talked about relaxing and the nervous system and everything that you said, I think it applies so well into pleasure as well in all its forms. So because I would love to have you back to talk about all of these themes in the context of pleasure, can you please wrap this up and talk about how people can relax and receive not just abundance, but how they can relax and receive pleasure in their bodies as well?
So I love talking about pleasure because I think it's really, really important. Women are taught that pleasure comes from outside of us. Somebody has to give us pleasure. We have to be worthy of pleasure. Yeah. Our bodies have to be a certain size, smell a certain way, be hairless or whatever, And then if we're really, really good and really, really lucky, we get pleasure. Well, guess what? That's bullshit. Pleasure exists within us. We are born with pleasure. That is in us. Yeah. And even in our own culture, if you read the Kama Sutra, if you read any of the texts, right? We are the embodiment of pleasure. We are Shakti. We have the yoni. The yoni is the center of the universe,
Yeah.
So it's a long kind of stretch, and I had to work very hard as well to get to a place where I knew that I was pleasure. I was pleasure itself. And if I chose to share it with somebody, that they were lucky to have that.
Yeah.
But it belonged to me. The sense of pleasure. And pleasure isn't just sex. An orgasm is one kind of pleasure. The feeling of like a warm shower on your skin is another kind of pleasure. Eating chocolate, popping a strawberry in your mouth. These are all pleasure. Scent, smell, the sound of rain on a roof. It's pleasure.
Yeah.
So we have to expand our lexicon of pleasure, of how we see pleasure, how we understand pleasure.
Yeah.
And we have to allow ourselves to receive pleasure. Because a lot of women don't do that. The number of women that feel like, I can't receive pleasure until I fulfill these criteria.
Yeah.
And that's, again, just so wrong. And that, again, lets marketers market to us.
Yeah.
If you buy this, you're going to be sexy. If you buy that, you're going to be more attractive.
Yeah.
Rubbish. You already are. You're beautiful as you are. I do this exercise in some of my workshops. I did this pleasure workshop, and I said to them, like, stand in front of the mirror, take your clothes off, look at yourself, and look at yourself as a lover would see you. You're beautiful. We all are, right? And that's pleasure.
Mic drop. Amazing. I have loved our conversation. Where can all of the bad betis and betas find you?
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. You can find me on Instagram as Soul Sutras. You can also find me on TikTok as Soul Sutras. You're welcome to email me. It's email@soulsutras.co.uk. I have two websites, soulsutras.co.uk for the podcast and baddaughter.co.uk for the book. My book is available on Amazon. It's on my website. It's called Bad Daughter. And it's my story, but it's also all our stories of really going after the things we want to have and healing and finding connection. So come say hello. I'm always, always happy to speak to people.
Thank you so much. I will link all of that below. It was amazing to speak with you. You truly are an empowering, inspiring, and energizing person.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute joy.